as the Oklahoma Sooners are going to potentially be losing at least 4 offensive linemen to graduation, NFL draft next season. Well, the end of this season, I guess, the upcoming season. They've got to be able to go hit this recruiting class really hard. And they're going to have to take a couple guys out of the transfer portal. But today we're going to give you guys an update on the OU target, the 4-star offensive tackle, according to the 247 composite rankings, the 164th ranked player in the country, Bennett Warren. But before we dive into it, guys, go ahead and hit that like and the subscribe button. Let me know what you guys are thinking down in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the 4-star offensive tackle out of Sugar Land, Texas? Does the Oklahoma Sooners land him in the 2024 class? So, like I previously mentioned just at the beginning, Oklahoma is potentially going to lose at least 4 offensive linemen after the 2023 season. Caleb Schaefer, McCade Matower, Walter Rouse, and Andrew Ream. I believe they're all seniors. I don't think they have any eligibility left after this. So if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. But those 4 would be all people you would assume would probably test their luck in the draft. Additionally, you could have a guy like Tyler Guyton, depending on what kind of season he has, hit the draft. And then, of course, you would expect to have at least a couple portal entries. So not only is Bill Bedenbough and the staff going to have a huge year in the recruiting trail, they're going to have to take a couple guys out of the transfer portal, some experienced guys, because you might be turning over an entire offensive line, which, I mean, if they all go to the NFL, can't complain too much because you just put a bunch of guys out there. But one of the targets in the 2024 class Oklahoma's looking at is Bennett Warren. Now, I got a chance to catch up with Bennett Warren over the past week or so, really talk about some of these OVs that he's looking at taking, why he likes those schools, and that's kind of something that we're going to talk about today. So, looking at his official visit list, I mean, it's pretty elite. He's got Michigan on April 9th. He has So to start on his official visits list, he's got Texas A&M on June 2nd, Michigan on June 9th, Oklahoma June 16th for the Champion Barbecue, and we all have high expectations for that, and then Oregon on June 23rd. Now, you might say only 4 official visits. Right now, it's only 4 official visits. I can tell you this. There is another SEC team that I think if he can get the official visit lined up, they're going to get one from him as well. Guys, I'll just have to keep your eyes peeled for that one. But let's go ahead and we're going to dive into each of these schools a little bit. We've got some quotes from him that we're going to talk about, and then I'm going to kind of give you my prediction on where I think Bennett Warren will potentially land. So we're going to start off with the visit on June 2nd. That is with Texas A&M, and he just said it's a great coach staff. He says, my head coach played for the O-line coach, so he has a lot of trust in Adazio, because with his head coach spent 10 years in the league playing tackle, which could only be a dream of his right now. And it's by no shock that Texas A&M is going to be in these recruitments for some elite prospects across the country, because they've been doing it for a decade now. Ever since they went to the SEC, we saw Texas A&M's recruiting take a step up. And hey, they definitely have a good shot of landing the kid out of Sugar Land, Texas. And, when you're an in-state school, I feel like you've always got a shot somewhere. But now let's move on to Michigan. So he says they have a great coaching staff, and I thoroughly enjoyed the first visit and had great interactions with their commits, and I'm still in good contact with them these days. Here's the deal. Michigan has been on a hot streak. Literally a hot streak on the recruiting trail. They have been taking guys left and right, and right now they currently hold the number 1 class with 17 commits. And on the offensive line, they got Andrew Sprague out of Kansas City, Missouri, Blake Frazier out of Austin, Texas, and they have Ben Robrook out of Lakewood, Ohio, Jake Gornera out of Ponte Verde Beach, Florida. Listen, The Michigan Wolverines, they're nobody to kid around with right now. They're definitely a team you're going to have to pay attention to because Michigan, they're trying to change their program and change the perception that they're able to go out there and land just as many elite prospects as their rivals just one state over in the Ohio State Buckeyes. But now we look at Oklahoma. This is the team that a lot of you guys that watch my channel want to know about. So Oklahoma, he said it was one of my favorites. They have great programs outside of football. Probably talking about the Soul Mission, and hey, we got great sports too. So when football season's not in, you can go watch softball, you can go watch gymnastics. I mean, basketball really ain't a whole lot to watch right now, but I expect next season to be better. And, there's a lot of good places to eat in Norman. So, yeah, I can see why he'd want to come here. But getting back to what he said, he said, it was one of my favorites. They have great programs outside of football. And everyone who I got a chance to meet was real about how they feel and what they've gained from being at Oklahoma. Now, I look at this and go, hey, it's important as an offensive lineman to always consider Oklahoma because of what Bill Bedenbough has been able to do on the offensive line. Bill Bedenbough has two of the highest paid offensive linemen. I would imagine that Creed Humphrey is going to join that tier of offensive linemen that have been highly paid from Oklahoma in the NFL. And listen, he's probably about to put a couple more into the NFL. So, Bill Bedenbough, he's really good when it comes to development of the offensive lineman. And listen, recruits take note to that. Outside of Bennett Warren, we've talked to offensive linemen in this class and last class who have said similar things where, they give Oklahoma a strong look because of Bill Bedenbough. So lastly, we have Oregon. He said, another one of my favorites, where I spent an entire week up there and enjoyed every single thing I did. So I feel it's only right to go back to solidify those relationships. Well, one, Bennett, I'm a little jealous that you got to go spend a whole week at Oregon because that place looks incredible. And I'm hoping Oklahoma one day gets to take a visit up to Eugene for a road game because I would 100% pay for flights and hotels and everything else to go watch Oklahoma play in Eugene because, well, if you've seen it on TV, it's definitely a pretty place, kind of like Colorado and Utah and places like that. But outside of that, what other schools could be potentially looking at Bennett Warren? And what has shocked me in terms of some of the schools on his offer list that maybe don't have an official visit set right now? Well, I'm looking at offensive linemen. If you're an offensive lineman and you're not considering Texas with Kyle Flood, a lot of Oklahoma fans don't want to hear that. Listen, Kyle Flood is a dude on the recruiting trail. So, but he does have a Texas offer. We'll see if anything comes to fruition with that. And then, of course, we were talking about it at the beginning, but a specific SEC school that could get an official visit from Bennett Warren. Guys, I think if Tennessee gives him the official visit, they can get him on campus. I think Tennessee has a real shot at this. The Tennessee Orange, listen, Rocky Top, they have been recruiting just about as well as anybody else as well. I mean, for I would say not an up-and-coming program because they've been there before, but let's say a revitalization of their program, especially with Josh Heupel at the helm. Tennessee has been recruiting at a high level. They got that five-star quarterback in Nico. I'm not even going to try to say the last name because I butcher it every time, but they got that five-star quarterback in the last cycle. They have stellar skill players on the wings at the wide receiver position. So Tennessee, they could be a real threat into all of these teams, but definitely one of the things I'm looking at here, Oklahoma, Oregon. You're going to be seeing that a lot right now in this 2024 class. Oklahoma and Oregon share very similar interests and a lot of recruits, and it looks like Oregon is going to be that thorn in our side where originally we thought it would be Michigan State this cycle. Looks like it's going to end up being Oregon. So, guys, I want to hear from you guys. Go ahead, jump down in the comments below, and give me y'all's thoughts. Now, I told you guys I'd give you a prediction on where I think Bennett Warren's going to land. So if you watched my last video, I gave you guys just a little bit of, I guess, recruiting updates, predictions, or just thoughts on what I think is going to happen over what has happened with the Sooners recruiting. I think Bennett Warren becomes a Sooner. I just do. I like Bill Bedenbough, and when it comes to offensive linemen that are not 5 stars, I think OU is usually in a really good position for those guys, especially with Bennett Warren just being a state away and not being a guy from like Massachusetts or Washington or a place like that. You're not having to try to convince a kid to travel thousands of miles, come to Oklahoma, just a couple hundred miles up the road. So I think Oklahoma lands Bennett Warren, but I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? Where do you think the 4-star offensive tackle from Sugar Land, Texas lands? If you haven't already, go ahead, hit that like and the subscribe